This week on r/TIFU.
I have crippling depression.
Stay till the end to find out what happens when. TIFU, I killed my finger with a thank you card. Today I fricked up by being forgetful and nearly destroying my marriage.
Be gone!
Obligatory. This happened in February. My wife went away for 4 nights and I cocooned with a bunch of beers, bottle of whiskey. My mother's favorite was her anniversary that weekend, so was toasting her, and also RDR, 2 of which I clocked up 44 hours of over the 4 days. She arrived home on the Monday afternoon and soon after went up to our bedroom. Few minutes later she comes downstairs looking like she's in shock. She calls me over and asks me what is this, whilst holding out her palm, and in her hand is a lady's earring. My wife does not have her ears pierced. She calmly explains, though I could see the stress in her expression, that this was found on the floor at her side of the bed. She had stepped on it whilst getting changed. I firstly pawned it off, nothing to do with me yada yada, and I go to turn away. Then the penny drops. She's going to think I had another woman in our bed over the weekend. I really had no idea how that earring got there. In no way, shape or form could it have gotten there. I was alone all weekend. Now thank the stars my wife is a reasonable human being. She listened to me, looked deep into my eyes as I swore blind I have not cheated on her. If this had occurred in any previous relationship, that girl would have made me homeless and destroyed everything I own. Over the following hours of deep conversation, if I had done anything at all that weekend, I would have admitted it. Her calm, cool interrogation technique being very effective. It was not an easy evening. A lot of damage to trust was done due to this unfathomable earring. Though somewhere in the deep recesses of my mind I recognized it. No way could I say this to my wife though, as this would just bring more suspicion on me. The next day at work was not an easy one for either of us. This item of jewelry was both on our minds, tearing up the trust we had built over 10 years together. Fair enough, she says she believed me, but we both knew the trust is hanging on by a thread. Eventually that afternoon, for some reason or another, I decided to review my online purchases over the years. Yeah, I was clutching at straws, but what else could I do? Eventually I got to my Etsy account, one which I only used to buy her things as she tags jewelry she likes. And there it was. I bought them 4 years ago, as I had forgotten then that she does not have her ears pierced. I cannot describe the feeling of relief I felt at that moment. Marriage saved. Proof I'm not a cheat right there, smiley face. I screenshot the purchase and sent it to her on WhatsApp. She was in a meeting with her boss when she looked at the message and immediately broke down into a flood of relief tears. So thank you Etsy for leaving the photos up of old purchases. You potentially rescued my marriage from going into a spiral of mistrust and stress. And a big F you to the universe for choosing that time and place, for making that earring appear to test my marriage like it's never been tested before and hopefully never will again.
Catch me outside, how about that?
Today I fricked up by dropping a knife while dishwashing.
Catch me outside, how about that?
I was washing the dishes when I dropped a very sharp knife which I normally use for cutting my favorite foods. For a split second, I thought it was no big deal because I could pick it up, but then I felt the worst pain I have ever felt in my entire life. The pain was in my foot, and when I looked down, I saw the knife was stuck in my foot. Not deep, but about a centimeter in. It still hurt as hell. I had to pull the knife out, which resulted in even more pain. I put a band-aid on it and continued washing, but I had to go to bed earlier due to the unbearable pain. When I woke up, there was a small blood puddle by my injured foot, but it felt better. I switched the band-aid with a new one and got up. It was still a little painful, but like I said, it was way better than the pain that I have had experienced the day before.
You are fake news.
Today I fricked up by telling my family I was going to go fap.
Be gone!
Obligatory, this didn't happen today, but last night. With all of this coronavirus panic around, my anxiety has been at an all-time high and I've been looking for ways to reduce it. A friend of mine sent me a video on YouTube that is supposed to control your breathing through guided meditation, and I thought I'd give it a try. Well, yesterday after my family and I watched a movie, I announced I was going to my room to fap and then go to bed. I meant to say meditate, but for some reason this came out. The worst part is I didn't even realize my slip of words. They all looked at me disgusted and confused, and I responded, "What? I need something to help me sleep." Then what I actually said hit me. I spent the next few minutes trying to convince my whole family what I actually meant to say, but even this morning the atmosphere is still super awkward. So much for reducing my anxiety.
Do it!
Today I fricked up by thinking divorce was an April Fool's gag.
Do it!
Let me preface this off by blaming all of you, the entirety of Reddit, for desensitizing me and giving me major trust issues on April Fool's Day. So here it goes. Yesterday I got a group text from my wife's Sarah side of the family stating there was an emergency family meeting happening that night over dinner at my mother-in-law's, Bob, house. I immediately had April Fool's spidey senses starting to tingle, but we haven't all got together since Christmas, so I overlooked it and said my wife and I, were in. We were the last to arrive and it was pretty somber when we walked in. We all sat down at the table and my wife's brother, Tim, informed the family that his wife Ashley has been having an affair and they are divorcing. The affair was with a long-time close family friend, Chris, who lived a block away. Chris's wife, Jen, had caught them when she came home early one day last week and broke the news to my brother-in-law Tim. Both families have been friends for years. They live less than a block from each other. They each have been married for 15 plus years, have 4 kids right around the same age. Honestly, I have always thought both of them were picture-perfect families. Hell, all 4 of them and their kids were at our house 2 weeks ago for a BBQ. Anyways, after airing a lot of the dirty laundry and their plans to divorce, how it could affect future family functions, and opening it up to the group of any questions, there was silence. I broke the silence with laughter and a slow clap, saying this was the best April Fool's gag I've ever seen, but I wasn't falling for it. I told Ashley and especially Tim they need to consider going into theatre. Their performances were top-notch and tears seemed genuine. Being the newest member of the family, my wife and I married 6 months ago, this was probably not the best thing to say in hindsight. I probably should not have said anything. Everyone in the room looked horrified. My mother-in-law, who had been crying the entire time, lost all composure. She left the room in hysterics and did not return before we left. Tim just shook his head, and his cheating wife actually let out a brief chuckle before calling me out for being a dumbass for thinking this was a ruse, then berating me for being so insensitive. The rest of the family sat in silence shaking their heads as my wife berated me for trying to make a joke out of a serious situation. I am still dumbfounded. In hindsight, I probably should have sat in silence, but I honestly still feel like I was calling out an April Fool's gag. My brother-in-law's wife has been cheating on him. They told the family they are getting divorced. I broke the awkward silence with a slow clap and laughter saying I'm no April Fool.
Shots fired! Shots fired!
TIFU, I killed my finger with a thank you card.
You are fake news.
So I recently had a birthday, which was pretty uneventful considering the current quarantine. However, one of my close friends dropped off a present at my doorstep and it was really thoughtfully made with tons of things in it. She got me a throw blanket, a sweater, a notebook, pencils, a necklace, and basically a whole bunch of stuff that would have been a good present on their own. Since I wasn't expecting anything very interesting that day, I was shocked and delighted by this, so, naturally, I wanted to thank her as best I could. I was going to make her a card, and not just a folded piece of cardstock with a note inside. I wanted to go all out like she had for me. I looked through creative ideas on Pinterest and whatnot, and found a very intricate card that she would love. It was obviously made with a custom paper punch, but since I enjoy drawing, I thought, why can't I just draw it out and use an X-Acto knife? So that's what I did. Oops. For one thing, this card had more than 4 layers of punched paper. For another, I didn't even have an X-Acto knife. This did not stop me. I just decided I'd use a sharp pocket knife. Now, out of all the ways you'd expect this might go wrong, what actually went wrong may be surprising. I got through all of the layers. It was grueling and painful, sitting hunched over for literally all day, the immense amounts of paper cuts, and the pain from using a pocket knife, which had no real way to stabilize it other than my finger. You know how when you hold a knife you stabilize it by putting your finger on the backside of the blade? Yeah, that, but all day, and I had to press real hard, cause I wanted the paper clean cut. It created a dent in my finger and stayed there quite a while. My finger went totally numb right there. And guess what? It's been 4 days, and my finger is still numb. I cannot feel the tip of it at all. I'm pretty sure I killed every nerve in it and now I have a dead finger. Will it last? I'm not entirely sure, but hey, it makes a great story.
Shots fired! Shots fired!